When I say that I went a little nuts learning about RVs, I mean, it was my special interest for many months. I completely went down the rabbit hole because I knew nothing about them and I was determined to learn everything about them before I spent any money on one. When I say it was my special interest for many months, it is not my main interest right now, but I still can rattle off a lot of facts and I'm still watching YouTube videos about the new models that are coming out. I got a little addicted. I'm going to start with a short introduction to all about RVs. I wrote down a lot of this and I'm going to read some of it to you because I don't want to leave anything out. I am not an expert in this. I will most likely get something wrong and I welcome you to please correct me in the comments as long as you can be nice about it. I'm not perfect, but I am going to do a very short info dump for you. Enjoy. General categories: motorized and non motorized. Beyond that, it's 5 subcategories. In the motorized category, you have Class A's, Class B's, and Class C's. They all have their nuances and they have their identifiers. And for this discussion, they're not terribly important because we were not buying a motorized RV. Like those really nice, like travel buses and stuff, or people who do van life or something in between, those are generally Class A, B, or C's. If you have a converted school bus, that's none of the above, and they're their own special animal, and those can be amazing or awful depending on who made it. The non-motorized are generally categorized as pull behind, bumper pull, and fifth wheel gooseneck. And then they have subcategories and breakdowns, and the delineations really aren't terribly clear for a lot of them. Fifth wheels and goosenecks are generally the same because I'm under the impression if you have a fifth wheel, you can convert it to a gooseneck and vice versa. And a lot of that is dependent on what kind of truck you drive. When we were looking at the fifth wheels, we were talking about having them delivered. So I didn't deep dive on exactly what the difference is and what made each of those special. So I could be a little wrong on that one. What I do know about them is I really like their layouts. I like the size. Oh my God, do I love the storage underneath. And I also like the fact that a lot of the times, most of the things that tend to be on the outside of bumper pulls are all contained in a fifth wheel. And it's just neat and tidy. And I love the way they look. I also love the fact that I'm so short. I can walk under the part that connects to the truck and I don't have to duck or even worry about it where everybody else on the planet that is above 5'3" does have to worry about it. So that is a nice feature as far as I'm concerned. The other category are the bumper pull, which encompass a lot of different things. Pull behinds, pop-up campers, but this also includes things like park models and destinations and things like that. What I wrote down was, for our purposes, all you really need to know is that travel trailers can include park models, which are basically tiny homes under 400 square feet, and destination trailers, which are very large, non-aerodynamic travel trailers that are not really meant to be moved around or only moved a couple times a season. These are also under 400 square feet, although some companies are now beginning to make fifth wheel versions that go over 400 square feet. And I have been in a couple of those, and oh my God, are they amazing. Although there are always exceptions, park models usually require special permits and equipment to move them, where destination RVs can typically be towed with a quarter or 1-ton pickup and need no special licenses or permits. And a lot of tiny homes, if they are under 400 square feet, are almost always considered park models and have RV licenses and are financed like RVs. If they're over 400 square feet and are not a fifth wheel, I believe they can be financed like a, and those are the ones that require the special permits to move around. Our vehicle with the best tow capacity at the time was our Ford Explorer. It really is a great vehicle for a family of 5. It's got the third row, it's got decent cargo, it has decent towing. The kids aren't touching each other when we travel. My middle kid got the third row to himself. He shared it with the dog a lot of the times. And numbers 1 and 3 had the 2 captain's chairs in the second row. Everybody had enough space. And it could tow around 6,300 pounds very capably and safely. And a modest travel trailer could easily be towed by it all over the place. But the problem with that was, since we were talking about using it as basically a tiny home or a cabin equivalent, we wanted one of the really big ones. So that had us looking at destination RVs and that had us looking at fifth wheels. And very few exceptions, those are all almost always 10,000 pounds or more. So there was no way we were going to be able to move this. Either we would have to find a friend with a truck to move them, or we would have to have them delivered. Since we weren't limited by towing capacity or length or things like that, we were only limited by the budget and features. And since we weren't buying a $250,000 motor coach, when you're talking about a house, there's not a huge swing in pricing. And it is and you would almost assume that like the destination RVs are probably more expensive than the fifth wheels. And sometimes that is true, but the RV industry has a quality problem and a consistency problem. And the minutia of the RV industry really could be its own video, and it might be one day. But a 4-season fifth wheel can easily be more expensive and heavier than a 44-foot destination RV. Destination RVs are fairly new to the market, and I think there are great great things coming. And to be fair, there are some great options out there, and they're cost effective. But there are a reason that those big things are cost effective, and there are a few that we really liked that were incredibly affordable when you consider what all you were getting. But if you look carefully online, and especially in a lot of the owners groups, they can't keep them warm in the winter and they can't keep them cool in the summers because they're so poorly insulated, or they don't have big enough ACs on them, or things like that. So we were probably endlessly annoying to salespeople because they would ask us, what we were interested in, and we were like, well, really, we're open to anything that sleeps. We would say sleeps eight because a lot of RV dealers consider the dinette a bed, which yes, they do convert, but nobody is sleeping on the dining room table in this family because we're just too picky. So we would say anything that sleeps eight is well equipped, looks nice. So it was probably very frustrating to a lot of these salespeople of, well, what are you looking for? Well, just about anything. Well, what's your budget? We don't care. So it was like they didn't know what to do with us. We really lucked out because the first dealership we went to, we ended up as our salesperson getting the owner's son. He was not there for the commission. I think he was there for the love of the game, honestly. So he had no problem educating us and explaining to us the things that we might need to look for, options that weren't worth the cost, things that were just bells and whistles. Here's where this is known to have not so great quality. This brand is known for great quality, but hey, we don't sell it. Maybe you need to look at this. He could have easily taken advantage of us not knowing anything. And he chose to be a really good guy and educate us instead. And I think had it not been for him, we may not have been as well positioned as we were when we finally bought something. And that might be some foreshadowing. But it's not what you think. I promise it's not what you think. In fairness, we did not end up buying an RV from them because their finance guy was the stereotypical slimy finance guy. And I was very clear about not pulling the stuff he ended up pulling anyway. And we ended up leaving and not going back again. If I were to find out that they had a different finance guy running numbers and things like that, I would definitely consider patronizing them again and buying something from them because our sales guy was just great. And I think he really enjoyed what he was doing growing up in the industry. Over the course of 4 months, we ended up visiting a lot of dealerships. We had gone to Florida to visit my in laws, so we visited several dealerships down there. We visited many dealerships in Georgia, several in Tennessee. I shopped several in Mississippi and emailed back and forth with a few of them, but we ended up not visiting any of those. And with maybe one or two exceptions, I think we visited in person every RV dealership north of Montgomery to the state line of Tennessee. Part of it was that I really wanted to learn the different options and what was available and things like that. And the other part of it was, it turns out I really enjoy walking through RVs. I don't know what it is, but it is probably now one of my favorite things to do. I love seeing what the different options are, what the different colors are, what's new for this year, what was better about last year, what did they change about this, what did blah, 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 blah. It really is a good time for me, and I'm probably really weird for that. But as far as the shopping part of it goes, we were incredibly thorough and made some really good relationships and learned some very surprising things about different brands, dealership, corporate conglomerates, and family owned ones alike. And I do have a side quest about one brand of dealership in particular that I was really surprised to learn about on my own. In addition to all the ones we visited, I was determined to get the best price on what we were going to end up buying. So I had negotiated with a couple of wholesalers, a couple places in Indiana directly, one in Ohio, and I had contacted a few other dealerships as far as I think Texas, because I have no problem getting in the car and driving to Texas to go look at an RV if I'm intending on buying it. So I definitely was thorough about it. And by the time we got it narrowed down to the models that we were seriously considering, I think it was 10 in total, but it really was more like five. There was definitely a spreadsheet involved with the different options, what the invoice cost was for the different options, and what the dealers were and what the companies were charging MSRP, and what the average discount the dealers were giving the different year models with X, Y, and Z option. That way, it was fair when I went to negotiate, because if Model A and Model B are the same make and model and year, but one has the washer and dryer and one has the extra air conditioner, I'm not sitting there haggling on the price when this washer and dryer is way more expensive than this air conditioner. So that way it was always apples to apples and I knew what I was negotiating. The funny thing about the spreadsheet was the fact that, I always have like a note section on there. So I also took copious notes about different salespeople at different dealerships and different dealerships, which is why, like, you can mention a certain brand or a certain company or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, here's our experience with that. Because I have a terrible memory, and those notes really end up being key in different situations, but it also allows me to come back and talk about some of these things because I have long since forgotten the minutia of it, and I can see my notes on it and then go ask Jay, hey, what was the deal with this? Because he remembers everything. So spreadsheets again for the win. After dealing with all these dealerships and dealing with the wholesalers online and things like that, I had accumulated a knowledge of the different RVs and features and models and companies at an alarming pace. And the really weird thing is I've retained a lot of it, which, like I said, I have a terrible memory. So for me to retain that is kind of amazing. And like I said, I am still watching YouTube videos of the newer models coming out of the tours. I definitely have a few favorite content creators on Instagram and YouTube alike that do the walkthroughs, and I just think they're absolute roots. It's entertainment for me at this point. But the my funny part about it is we had gone to a dealership about 2 hours from here, and they had a new general manager, and we ended up talking to him for quite a while because I was not jiving with our salesperson at all. And I don't remember how we ended up with the general manager, but we did. And we ended up yapping with him because me and him really hit it off. And we went and looked at one of their holdover models from 24, and they were wanting to get rid of it. And so I was rattling off different features about it and what was different between that 24 and the newer 25s that they had on the lot. And this, that, and the other. And he goes, "You're really thorough about this. You're really good at this." And I was like, "Yeah," I said, "I may have done the deep dive," and basically told him what I had been telling you guys. And he legit offered me a job. Like, he goes, "You're scary good. You know more than a lot of my salespeople. And I think you definitely know more than me." He goes, "You should come work here." And I'm like, I would consider that if you weren't 2 hours away. And honestly, if I had been thinking on my feet a little bit better, I should have pitched it to be like, if you let me do your online sales, I'm in. And they actually have a local location here in the town I live in. So, I mean, if you let me do your online sales, I will be more than happy to meet people just to do a tour of the lot, but do not expect me to sit on this lot all day, every day. Should have been the answer, but I wasn't thinking quick enough that day. But that is just a funny example of how insane, like it was an encyclopedic knowledge of these different models and stuff. And he did end up making us an offer, and it was a very solid offer, but that was one of the ones that are starting to really have quality issues and are banking on the brand name. And we're definitely seeing a lot of the quality issues without looking into it. But then again, we're fairly handy. We can fix things. And that was an incredible deal. We just couldn't pull the trigger on it. So we ended up not getting it. But I would like the first place, I would definitely visit them again, if and when we're in the market again. And when I'm talking about, we narrowed down the models for the spreadsheet. I said we had 10 total and probably had narrowed down to about 5 serious ones. I was not married to any of them, and it really was going to come down to I like these models well enough to where I would not complain to have it. It's going to be what features it has at what price. Like, not going to be which model do I want the most. It's going to be who's going to give me the best deal. And when I started seriously negotiating some of these, I was very upfront and forward about that. I'm always really good about telling people these are my expectations because I don't like it when people make me guess, so I'm not going to make them guess. But what really makes me mad is when I tell you these are my expectations, and then you go do the opposite, or I say, "Hey, don't do X, Y, and Z," and then they go do X, Y, and Z. Then I get mad and walk out, and I have no problem doing that. And I think it shocks a lot of people because I'm funny and I'm nice and I'm little and unassuming. And then I get mad and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't expect that." I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I told you, like, why are you doing this? Like, it's ridiculous. And a lot of salespeople and especially the finance people do not listen to this. They just tell you what you want to hear and then do what they want anyway. And it's like, oh, that's a no go for me. You will not get my business. So that's kind of where we were. And I have to say, I had negotiated some really killer deals at this point. And I think I had about maybe 4 deals going at one time at this, not including the one with the guy who offered me the job. Because I think that was the first offer I had gotten. While we were in the middle of all this, they had come out with a new model in one of the sub brands that I really liked because I felt it was a good balance of decent enough quality and solid price points. And the one they had just come out with, my husband loved. He loved this thing. And to be fair, it was nice and it checked a lot of boxes. I just felt it was a little too snug for what we needed. It had a staircase to a loft, and the staircase was so narrow that like my hips would hit the railing and the wall at the same time. And it's like, okay, yeah, I might have a big butt, but this is ridiculous. One of the things that also was kind of a pro and con is my husband loved the new design on the outside of this thing, and it was very unique, and it kind of looked like it had a cabin look on the outside, but my husband felt it looked like a train car. And my concern is people are so used to the way we've always done it in the RV community that I was terrified we weren't going to be able to resell it, even though it was kind of cool on the outside. So it was one of those that was like, yes, but, and also it was brand spanking new, so nobody was cutting any really good deals on it. So I was like, we're going to overpay for this thing because it's new. as we had narrowed it down, there were some where I loved the interiors. They were lighter colors. They were, I guess, farmhouse, which is in and out at the same time right now. I don't know. But like you would go on the owners' pages and they were falling apart nearly immediately and just didn't have the quality. And then the ones that were known for their quality, companies had this weird obsession with making it look mid-century modern and it's all dark wood and stuff. And I really hate that look. I grew up in the 80s and a lot of people had mid-century modern holdovers from the first time it was around. It's like, yeah, it's really cool to have that avocado green refrigerator now, but it wasn't then. So the whole dark wood look and stuff is just not my vibe. But the ones that were making the better quality units were doing that look, or the good quality ones that had the lighter color, the farmhouse look, were wildly expensive and new. And yeah, I definitely wasn't going to pay just because the colors were better. So we had all these different variables going on. We had a few offers working, and like I said, we had some solid offers. There were some though that the dealerships just fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line. It was ridiculous how ridiculous some of this was, and there's also a few more side quests in here that are stories of their own. It would just make this even longer. But the when it came down to it, we just could not pull the trigger on any of these. We just could not commit. And that's out of character for us because usually once we've decided on something, we're good, we're done. We're just finding the best deal at this point. And I was really beginning to question myself that why can't we close these deals? Why can't I say, okay, let's do this? Um, so I was still looking around, and one of the sister companies to the one that made the train car looking one that my husband liked was coming out with their flagship, which was a bigger version of one. It had a white exterior, so it looked like every other RV, which is not a pro in my book, but it does help with resale. And it was roughly in the same price point as the other one, but it had more space. And it had an entire extra sleeping space for the kids. And I felt like this might be the winner. The problem with it is it was coming out. Finding one in person was a challenge. A lot of the ones that were actually hitting the lots were pre-sold, and they won't let you walk through them if they're already sold because damages could happen as a liability thing. And I get that. And you're not going to work a great deal on them if they're brand spanking new to the market and they've pre-sold all the ones that are hitting the lots. But I felt like, well, maybe that's why I can't close these deals is because I want to actually physically go inside one of these. This is what I'm waiting for. And if that's the case, maybe we'll pay a little bit more to get it. And this was one of the ones I mentioned that was over 400 square feet in a fifth wheel because I think this thing comes in like 680 something, 580 something. I don't remember the exact stats on it. But yes, it was a sister company of the one, but the one is known for their quality, and this one, it was in the line where it was their better quality, but not as high end as the original one. And it being the same price point, more square footage told me you're going to sacrifice a few things. You're gonna sacrifice quality to get the extra space. And I knew that going in. But it's a matter of how much quality are you sacrificing for that extra space. And the pictures online looked amazing. I mean, it looked immaculate. And I'm like, okay, maybe since it's their flagship and it's their first redesign they've had in X number of years, and this is their commitment to quality, maybe this will be a surprise. And they're gonna like they've priced it accordingly to sell the units to get it out there and get people talking about it. A few more weeks go by, and I finally find one over in Georgia. And this one's 2.5, 3 hours away, depending on traffic and mountains. And I make an appointment to go see it. And I am ridiculously excited to go see this because I'm like, well, maybe this one's it. Maybe this is why I haven't bought any of the other ones. I haven't taken any of these exceptionally good deals. And so we get in the car and we go and we go in and it is lovely. It is absolutely lovely. But there's some stuff immediately that I ping that are like, why are we doing this? Like it has, I think like 15-foot ceilings, something like that, because it's the extended height model or whatever. And it has these windows at the top that have blinds, and in every other model, even the cheap ones, they're motorized. These aren't motorized. I am 5 feet tall. There is no way I'm going to be able to open and close these things. Like getting on the step stool is not going to work at 15 feet. So I thought that was a weird choice and things like that. And then it happens. My husband opens one of the drawers in the kitchen. And one of the things we always check is the quality of the drawers because you can tell a lot about the quality of an RV by the quality of their drawers, of the kitchen drawers especially. He reaches in to check the quality of the drawer and it's got the nicer slides on the drawer and this and that. I don't think they were soft close, which was also another warning sign in something that big and expensive. Like you really should have self-closing drawers at that point. And he reaches in and pulls his hand back out. He has a massive splinter in his finger and he wasn't hurt or injured or anything like that. But the fact that they've got a six-figure price tag on this thing. Now, there's a whole thing about the MSRP, and you never pay MSRP. So we would have gotten it definitely significantly less than six figures. But they've got a six-figure price tag on this thing, and my husband gets a freaking splinter from the kitchen drawer. Oh, he was done. That was it. I knew as soon as he pulled his hand back, we were done. He wouldn't even consider it. I knew it. And I'm like, I liked it enough, and if we could get a good enough deal, but like I said, getting a good deal on a new unit that's in high demand is a whole thing, and there was also some scuttlebutt going on around about those being recalled already for a slide out issue, which is kind of a big deal. So that, there was chatter going on that, maybe they got these out a little too fast and things like that, but they have a six-figure price tag on this thing, and they can't even run a piece of sandpaper over the drawer is like, no, like, no, no, no. And so I knew he was done. And we ended up looking at a few other units and stuff, but people just didn't seem like they wanted to sell an RV. It's like we have driven this far and they really weren't interested in, they didn't seem like they were interested in selling one of these stuff. I don't know why, which was fine because he was completely done, but they did have a few other models that I had definitely been looking at. And I would have definitely been interested in, especially one of the ones they had on the lot. But like they never even called and followed up after I made the effort to make an appointment and drive that far and things like that. But on the way home, I'm driving back and I'm like, well, maybe it's worth it for the space to like not have as good a quality. We can run some sandpaper over it. It's not a big deal. We have standing blocks at the house that we can take out there. It's, not a thing. And he's like, what else is there? What can't you see? And I knew he was completely done. And we're driving back and we've been doing this for 4 months at this point. And we're discussing like some of the deals we have on the table because some of them we had kind of left in limbo after we figured out that we were going to go see the one model we wanted to see first. And I actually think we told one of the dealerships that we didn't want to close the deal until we actually walked through one of those, and they did not have one of them because the one they had sold immediately, was gone, and they were willing to hold the deal. And so we were like, well, do we want to go get this one? Do we want to go get that one or whatever? And we just were like, nothing really was pinging for us. And so we get almost home, and he looks over and turns to me and goes, maybe we should look at manufactured homes after all. Okay. And if you want to hear about that, and the fallout from that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.